we all know what the Browns did last year, and they added Clowney to the mix on the defensive line. That will be quite the first test for your revamped offensive line, I would say, for sure. Walk me through your timeline here on rebuilding your offensive line, and we all saw the Super Bowl, and we were all talking about it. I'm wondering if it hit you in the same way. Clearly.
Yeah, well, I think it was kind of one of those situations where when we start to meet as a staff in October, November, just looking ahead to free agency and roster construction in the future, certainly the offensive line was on the forefront in regards to our agenda and what we wanted to get accomplished. Now, during that time, we proceeded to lose our starting right tackle, Mitch Schwartz, and then in the AFC Championship game, our left tackle, Eric Fisher. So I would say that the offensive line was already at the forefront of what we wanted to get done, but that plan certainly got expedited, and it got put in a high gear once we were kind of made aware that we'll see what happens with Mitch Schwartz and his return. And I know Eric just signed with the Colts, but both those guys hadn't played a bunch of snaps in the league, and just wanting to continue to build youth and depth on our roster was something that we were going in that direction anyway. So it just got kind of put in ultra gear there, and it's always dangerous when you go into free agency. We were fortunate enough to knock out a great interior player in Joe Thuney right off the bat. Exercised a little patience, and the Orlando Brown thing worked out. And then once you're not really going out there trying to assemble a roster by need and you're letting value and players come to you, I feel like everything else just kind of fell in place in regards to adding young players like Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith in the draft.
So let me pull on that string a little bit on Orlando Brown, where you said having patience paying off a little bit. What do you mean by that? Just knocking on the door of the Ravens and what do you mean by that?
Well, I think when you go into free agency, we had a plan, and we wanted to certainly add an interior player and a tackle. And as I mentioned, we cranked out Joe Thuney right off the bat, and we were kind of in on Trent Williams a little bit, and he decided to stay in San Francisco. And then after that, I mean, there's many different avenues you can pursue, and there were some other players available. But I think when we looked at our roster and looking at the draft and trying to marry the two pools of players, we weren't really extremely driven by what else was out there on the free agent side. We kind of did our homework in the draft and talked about moving up and acquiring, maybe moving down and acquiring more assets and acquiring more than one tackle. And we kind of just were patient, and I don't think we panicked and just signed the next tackle on the board. We were looking for a specific criteria, and we really just wanted a legitimate starting left tackle. So whether we had to move up in the draft or just be patient and see how things play out with other players was the direction we decided to go in. And a few weeks later, as we got closer to the draft, conversations with Baltimore started to pick up, and we were able to pull that trade off. So, it was one of those deals where we had a plan, and we executed part one of the plan, and we just had to be patient and wait. And fortunately for us, Orlando became available, and we were able to, to finalize a deal with him and get him here. So we're extremely excited about that.
Yeah, the reason why I asked about your patience remark, Brett, is because I was wondering, because we did have John Harbaugh on the show before the draft, and I asked him if there was any hesitancy on the Ravens side of trading a player who clearly wanted to be a left tackle and wanted out because of Ronnie Stanley there, and if there was any hesitancy with trading with the team that's won the conference the last 2 years. And he said no, because the deal was right. But I'm wondering if there was any hesitancy that you noticed until you had to actually make the deal right for the Ravens, from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, listen, possibly. Those trades are always tricky, just because the market is select. Obviously Orlando's a great tackle. It was made clear early on after the offseason began that he wanted to play left tackle. I think that they had a unique relationship in regards to Orlando and his family history with that organization. So I truly believe it was a situation where they were wanting best of both parties. But when you look at the landscape of the NFL and you have a great player who wants to play left tackle, you're going to have a certain amount of teams that already have really good left tackles, and then you're going to have a certain amount of teams that are picking high in the draft, and they may want to just draft one early to get 5 years of contractual control. So it kind of narrows the pool when you're trying to do something like this. It's not like you have 32 teams just having an opening and cap space and what have you. So I think we got a little lucky. I don't think it was their desire to trade him to the Chiefs. I think it just worked out where it made sense for both parties.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.